Welcome to All the Way Up podcast by Jeffrey Mensah. This is the Bar and Beyond series, a platform where we host insightful conversations that push growth, drive ambition, and shape perspectives of young lawyers. Hi, lovely people. A warm welcome to All the Way Up podcast by Jeffrey Mensah, my good self. I'm pretty excited. Today, I'm having a conversation with a great man. I'm sure as the conversation progresses, you'll experience or appreciate some level of his greatness. He's the head of legal for Bank PLC. Also happens to be the chief legal officer for the Bank Group. Ladies and gents, the man himself, Mr. Eugene Gilbert Amponsah, Esquire. My man. Eugene, welcome to the podcast. And first and foremost, I must say I'm grateful for your making time to be part of this podcast, to have this conversation with me. I know you guys are busy all week around, and for you to be sharing your weekend with me, I'm grateful.
My absolute pleasure.
Yes. And he also happens to be one hell of a saxophone player. And so usually we're going to start from there. How did your relationship with the saxophone start?
That's an interesting question. I mean, I'd always liked, the idea of playing the saxophone.
Okay.
But I started, I'm an organist. That's my first instrument.
Right.
I had the opportunity to have a teacher teaching me at home. My father was quite passionate. He was an organist at some point. So
okay.
He tried at some point. And so all the kids, we sort of got, ingrained in music.
Hooks to music, yeah.
And so I started when I was in the university. A friend of mine bought the saxophone, which was the first I saw. And immediately I fell in love with the instrument.
Nice
one. I promised myself that I would buy one. Right. At some point in second year, I had the opportunity to either travel for vacation abroad or to have an instrument, but I was refused the visa, so I was forced to choose
the instrument rather.
So I went into Kumasi Edum and then bought an instrument, and that was how the journey started.
That's interesting. Yeah. So what from the start you had time to practice every single day, or
So after when I'm back in my hostel from lectures in the evening as a law student, I'll come and practice and disturb the entire hostel.
Wow.
So apologies, guys.
Interesting you mentioned, because I also at a point developed an interest in the violin. So I started playing right after BCE, went through senior high school. But when I got to university, the law program, I was just so overwhelmed that I packed the violin somewhere. Yeah. So knowing that you're able to play through law school to now, and I've heard you play before, and I know you play like a pro. I think it's a challenge to me. I still have some people saying, go back to the violin, but it's interesting. So Eugene, against that backdrop, let's start with how it all began for you. What inspired you to opt for the legal profession, to choose a career in law practice? I mean, how did it start?
So, thanks, Jeff. Frankly, I don't have one of those grand, my father is a lawyer, I want to be a lawyer type of stories. I would say that a lot of it has been providence, and let me say chance for want of a better word.
Right.
My career path I see now is dovetailing into what I expected it to be from the beginning. But in the beginning, I was going to read business admin at the University of Ghana.
Okay.
In fact, I'm from a long line of people who have read business admin. My father was a chartered marketer and best graduating student at the University of Ghana in his time.
And
I had always known everything about business. My big sister also read business admin in school. But at the time that my results from secondary school came, I said, hey, when I looked at the admission requirements, I said, I qualify for this law program. Why don't I see what I can make
reach for the stars,
and I knew, of course, that there were many opportunities to do some short business-related courses. I thought that reading law at that point, would give me an opportunity that I probably wouldn't have, soon, anytime soon. And so I opted to do law first.
Okay.
And now I see how that is dovetailing, again, I said, into commercial practice. Which is what I always thought my career would look like.
Right. How many years at the bar are you?
So I've crossed 10 years. I'm in my 11th.
Yes. I think that qualifies you to be the justice of the High Court, I believe.
Exactly.
That's big. Now, Eugene, during the introduction, you were introduced as the head of legal for Bank PLC and also the chief legal officer for the Bank Group. Briefly, what does your line of work entail? I mean, on a daily basis. I mean, you may not be able to disclose the details, but what does it involve?
Right. My day is quite interesting and quite packed, as you'd expect. I mean, if you know how the work of a lawyer that works in a corporate institution is like, everything legal comes to your desk. And of course, as chief legal officer, you are the legal watchdog for everything legal. All transactions, all contracts, transaction structuring, everything is coming to you. Advice on corporate governance, structures of subsidiaries. In fact, even all the way to the board, providing direct support to the board is concerned. Of course, I oversee a team of wonderful lawyers and I have quite an excellent team of people who are quite astute, who appear to be who have their careers sort of going in the direction of mine.
Exactly.
But many of my lawyers have qualifications in finance. Some have LLMs in corporate law and finance. And so my everyday would see requests coming in from either departments, units, etc., for legal support in one way or the other. Customers who have early applications. There are so many things. But me personally, now what I do as chief legal officer is essentially to keep my head wrapped around the top level legal issues. As a member of the executive committee, there are issues regarding top level decisions that must be taken in terms of strategy, on where the bank wants to go, certain products, issues of intellectual property and things of the sort. Quite top level things that I have to spend my time worrying about, and I'm resigning myself to that.
Right. It sounds like a lot will come down to your preparation for this role. In actual fact, because it just seems like a lot to me. But let's take it back a bit. Let's look at your background before the law. All right, senior high school. That's SSS back then in your time.
Right.
Through to university. What program did you opt for in senior high school? What was it like for you?
Interestingly, I've had I describe my growing up as a culturally rich sort of upbringing.
Right.
Maybe I'll take you back a little bit.
Sure.
Than that. So I was born in Hoho in the Volta region. I lived there for about 2 years. Then I moved to live with my maternal grandmother in Mampong, Equiapim.
Okay.
And then from there, of course, I came back to Accra. Went to Association International School, the old Association International School.
The old association is not the DB Association.
It was the Saito Association.
Right.
But same location. So Association International School.
The spirit was still there. So
exactly. And then from Association, I went to advanced swim. I read general arts, geography, economics, elective math, and French. And I loved French at the time. It's not my language. I haven't. At some point, I went to Alliance after secondary school.
Okay.
My father spoke flawless French, and when I went to Alliance, the man refused to speak any English or Cree with me at all.
It's just French.
It's just French, but it's something I'm still looking to go back to. And then from then, I went to the university. At the time, the law faculty of Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology had begun. In fact, I went to meet the first batch because if I recall, I'm among the third batch of students.
Okay.
And so I read my LLB at the law as
a first degree.
As a first degree,
Okay.
I read my LLB as my first degree.
Okay.
And then from then, the 3-campus law school, Ghana School of Law campus system had been introduced, and admissions had become a problem. And in fact, at the time, my late father was ill, so I decided to take a year off and then spend time with him. And then, so every day for that year, I was with him. But then I went to do my national service before then at the Commission for Human Rights and Administrative Justice, the regional office, the Greater Accra regional office.
Okay.
Yes, and I met that I would say that was a starting place for me for a lot of the things that I've learned about the working world in my career. I met some very wonderful people. The director loved me, and I fully immersed myself in the work. And as we go on in the conversation, some of the lessons I learned from there will come out.
Definitely. And it's interesting you mentioned, because as you're talking, I just realized how much we may have in common. I mean, the French language. My dad also spoke impeccable French, and I loved French to a point where when I was about entering university, for me the choice was either between law or a program that had French.
Wow.
And I almost chose that program that had French. And my dad was like, law is heavier, so
Enchanté.
Yeah.
Je suis très content de faire votre connaissance, monsieur.
What's the response again? We say merci beaucoup.
Merci,
merci.
Ouais.
Yeah. Or à vous de même. It's now coming to me. But anyway, let's move to law school. Okay, you entered law school. What would you describe your period in law school as? How did it go for you?
I would describe my period in law school in one word, and then I attempt to explain. It was full.
Full.
It was full. And what I mean by that is I had started to develop, I had developed an understanding of the saying that which became my personal philosophy, that if you're not around the table, you want to be around the table where decisions are made.
Yeah.
And right from the university, I took an interest in students' politics.
Okay.
And not because they pushed, but because I liked the idea of leadership.
Yeah.
The idea of being able to directly contribute, to the conversations that ultimately caused an influence and a ripple effect.
Yeah.
Okay, so in the university, I was a hall executive. I was the Judicial Committee Chairman for Queen Elizabeth II Hall.
Okay.
I was also, by virtue of that position, a member of the SRC Judicial Council. I was the recorder, the secretary. In fact, at some point, I was the acting chairman. So the Chief Justice of the university, receiving a lot of petitions about students' elections. So when I got to the Ghana School of Law, in fact, I recall that the very first day, we met the school administration. The SRC at the time came to speak with us. The former president, now Hassan Tampoli, now an MP who was with the petroleum. Yeah. They spoke with us, and then we were asked to choose leaders. I recall that I was sitting with a good friend of mine, Slobotia, who's now lecturing, and he was sitting on my right side. In fact, because I was taking a year off law school, though my colleagues who were my juniors by a year from the university became my mates. And I had quite a good relationship with them, from the university. So after the SRC spoke to us, I remember telling my dear friend Slobo that I would be SRC president of the school before we leave. And then we laughed, we made a joke out of it, and then, they finished. So right after, we had to elect class executives. Yeah. So that I told him to nominate me, and then he nominated me. At the end of the process, I won. I became the class prefect.
The journey had begun.
The journey had begun, that one ripple that started.
Yeah.
So because of that, then I'd become ingrained already in the school system, dealing with school authorities on issues of students' affairs and students' welfare. And then the time came, SRC elections came, when we were getting to part 2. I applied. I lost by 12 votes, but subsequently became the vice president when the re-election was done. So I left the Ghana School of Law as the vice president of the SRC. Okay. And at the time, in fact, we had a law school choir, the Legal Angels, and I was the choir director. I was the choir master of the Legal Angels. And I recall some fond memories where the Chief Justice, I got a call from the Chief Justice's office during vacation that the South African Chief Justice was in Ghana and they wanted us to render the South African anthem. And so I had to quickly regroup the team and then have somebody teach us. Those were fond memories. And so I say that my experience was full because I see that I had a rare opportunity to basically do everything, a bit of everything, in the law school.
That's in any. Do you recall any low moments in law school? I mean, I recall a lot from you, but on your end, do you recall any low moments?
I won't. Well, low moments, maybe things flowing from the pressures at home because my father was ill. And I had to combine that with the tedious regimen of law school education. So I won't say those were low moments, but those were opportunities that gave me, they were sobering moments. Because sometimes you sit and you think, how am I going to get my school fees paid, when the old man has, dialysis fees to be paid. Yeah. And so those were some challenging moments, but of course those also, came along with them, the opportunities to learn and to deepen, my personality. Yeah. So I would say that, of course, apart from the usual stress of reading all your cases and meeting your deadlines before exams, that's my
but let's backtrack a bit. Now you're involved in student politics. Of course, it has its demands as well. Demands on your time, demands on your effort, energy, and all of that. You also have a very involving program, right? The law course. You just mentioned the reading of cases, the briefing of those cases, the reading of textbooks, and preparation for exams. How did you strike the balance, really? Because, it's something lots of people struggle with as law students. They're involved in so many things, but once they enter law school, it's like, we put these things on hold. Right. Okay, let's focus on the law for now. Obviously, your experience was different. How did you strike that balance?
And so, yes, your observation is absolutely right. When you enter a program like a law program, I think that it's common knowledge, but that is my own philosophy. You have to know when to do what at what time. You decide that I need to have this done. Yeah. I have 2 years to complete my program. What social events can I cut out? Which can I minimize? Okay. Can I attend certain programs late and leave early? Because I need to make time for what is most pressing at that point. So I had to do that. Of course, I was the organist in my church, so every Sunday I have to be in church. But what I'll do, for example, is that after church service, I'll drive back. I'll go back to find a trotro and go back to the Ghana School of Law campus and spend the rest of my day reading through my books or reading my cases. There was a community library close to me where I lived in Medina, so at the teacher training school there. So I would go sometimes and then go and study. Okay. But I would say that it's all about deciding that, prioritizing, this is what is priority. Let me take some time off the other things and then focus to get this done because it needs to be done. It needs to be done now.
Right. That's a solid reaction. Let's move to after you got called to the bar. All right. The pupillage era. First and foremost, what were your expectations as soon as you got called to the bar? Because I had some wild expectations,
right.
you know. But what were yours, and were they met during that period?
Okay. Frankly, I didn't have too many expectations.
Okay.
It's more, I didn't know what to expect.
Okay.
And like I mentioned, I'm not from a long line of family with a long line of lawyers, so that I see that I have an uncle driving in a new Jag, and so, I believe that I can get rich quickly. No, I didn't have that sort of experience.
Okay.
And so I really did not know what to look for. I recall that when I was leaving, before I left the law school, I got in touch with one of our lecturers, and I asked that, law school, we are ending. I'm looking for places to do my pupillage. Can he give me some guidance on what to do? And he referred me to some law chamber.
Okay.
And at the time, I had applied also to the firm that I eventually worked with, AB and David Africa. But I recall that when I went for the initial interview at the law chamber, in fact, the senior was reading a newspaper and he was flipping it and saying, "Young man, you see," then he would pause at some news article and an item and say that, in this job, we don't really pay that well. But, if you carry enough briefs over time, you would find your feet. And in fact, my problem at the time was not the fact that I wouldn't get paid. Of course, that was a concern because my father was ill, but it wasn't my chief concern.
Yeah.
The optics of how it looked, in the formal interview for the senior to be reading a
newspaper. Attention divided.
I don't know if this is the kind of place that I want to be. And then the following week, I go for an interview at AB and David, and it's a full panel of lawyers, and they've taken time off, and you can see that these are serious
entirely
people.
different
environment. And they're asking me questions that go to the root of a person's personality, questions that seek to find whether I know myself well. For example, if you're part of a car, what part would you want to be? And it's not the usual interview question. They're trying to find out why you want to be the part. And I recall that on my way to that interview, my car had developed a fault, so I said I want to be that part.
The carburetor or what part?
It's not part. I think my clutch was having trouble.
Right.
And then I said that I want to be that part. And for me, it didn't matter what role I played in an organization, as long as I understood that regardless of how small I was important.
You're important
to the ultimate function of that organization. That was important for me. I suspect that is what scored me the point, to win that job. But if they are listening, well, thank you for the opportunity.
That's wonderful. Now, you started your pupillage. What would you say were some of the struggles you encountered during that period of pupillage?
Right. I think the chief struggle I had was the sort of distinction between the law program as an academic program and law practice. And I think there's the shock that most law students have when they come into practice. You hear all these stories about the drinks are chilling at the bar, so welcome to the bar. And then you realize that what the American realist said was true. The law is in the bosom of the judge. And
exactly.
That is if your focus is litigation or dispute resolution before the courts.
Yeah.
You find that you can put out a solid case, but ultimately the appreciation of the judge is what carries the day.
Exactly.
That for me then brings back the legal theories and say, oh wow, the American realists were onto something.
Right, exactly.
But that shocker of knowing that it's not just theory. And for me, the other benefits I had from working in the firm was that they sort of put the law practice in perspective.
Right.
And I think that if you're a young lawyer and you have that opportunity, you should take it. A firm that gives you the opportunity to understand basically the full gamut of what the law can do. We work in practice groups. While we're working the practice groups, and these were segmented work areas, real estate, litigation, dispute resolution, things of the sort. And so you had the opportunity to focus, and dive deep into those specific areas.
Okay.
What I realized was that built my confidence in the areas that ultimately were to become the focus of my job. I worked in banking and finance at the time, and I then decided that this is an area I want to look at. But apart from the practice area sort of structure, there was also the trainings in things like to find out things about your personality, what drives you. I remember we had a training session for trainee associates at the time, or pupils at the time before we became trainee associates, where the question was asked, what drives you? And then I discovered that what drives me is, in one word, relevance.
Right.
And what I mean by that is, for example, I would rather attend a small church where I am an organist and my services are needed than a big church where there are 10 organists and I need not get selected. Sure. And some people found out that they were driven just by the love of having money. There are people who just want to see their money in their account. They don't really spend it. There are people who are driven by a fear of scarcity. We are driven by different things, either fear or other things.
Yeah.
So I discovered that there were things I had sort of thought about before, but I had the chance to zero in and then get certified in my mind that indeed these are the things that drive you. You see then that it's a trend that goes on in your career. You want to be in a place where you are needed, and things of the sort. You want to better yourself so that you are still relevant. And I see that is the key thing that drives me in my career.
So at the end of pupillage, I believe it was six months back then.
6 months, yes.
Yeah. Were you clear in your mind that, okay, here's where I want to go to? Because you mentioned that, there are different practice areas, you guys worked in groups and all of that. Were you certain, or it took a while for you to be able to be certain that this is exactly what I want to pursue as a specialization area, which we'll come to very soon? But
so I wasn't. Pupillage didn't settle that debate in my mind.
Okay.
I was coming from the human rights, the commission from Shraj.
Yeah.
And actually, at some point, I applied to Fordham to read, masters in human rights. I like human rights.
Okay.
And there are things that we did there, children's rights and certain things that with interventions that we introduced.
Yeah.
That I thought I wanted to take further.
Okay.
But from the pupillage period, when I started getting introduced to various areas, it started to sway my mind a little bit. I started to ask myself the questions. So after pupillage, I stayed on for over 2 years in my firm. It was in that time, I would say, when I became a trainee associate and then subsequently a junior associate.
Okay.
I started to get hints of clarity on what I want to do. Because then I saw that I enjoyed certain practice areas more. I did better. I had a proficiency in certain areas more. Or my contributions in those areas appeared valued more.
Right.
And so I decided then that, and AB and David introduced an interesting intervention, which at some point had to be seized because we had quite some stuff on the table. But I decided to take it up. They advised that lawyers take up the Ghana Stock Exchange program in finance.
Okay.
So I was one of those to have been enrolled. When the program ceased, I took it on upon myself, went to make the inquiries, continued the payment, paid through the exam and finished. And then I got a certification as an authorized dealing officer of the stock exchange.
Wow.
So I remember writing the exam. It was quite tedious, for a lawyer to delve into finance and see all these bullish market, bearish market, and then you're rubbing your eyes. And
exactly.
One lawyer looking at me and saying, "Hey, lawyer, make sure when you should be wrong." What he meant was that it appeared I was dizzy from all the volume of financial information. But those were the formative areas for me, going into the areas of commerce and the business world. I mean, there were theories that, and I must give a shout out to my former senior, David Ofosudo, a brilliant man. I describe him as the man who knows everything about everything. That's for a different date. There were lessons that I learned from him and other seniors I had, Ferdinand, etc. There were things about understanding industry.
Yeah.
Law, if you're a lawyer, you're like a doctor. People come to you because they have a pain point.
Exactly.
They want a solution. My house is being sold. What do I do to solve? They don't need to. They don't want to know your voluminous verbose, legal opinions.
Yeah.
They just want to know, how do I
to solve their problem,
this pain. And so the focus on business was paramount in AB and David. The conversation was, you have to understand the business. Nobody comes to you and says, lawyer, here's $1,000 because you're a lawyer. No, I have a problem. Do you understand my problem? Can you solve it?
Yeah.
That is when they pay you money. And so when I discovered my area of my interest in business, I decided that this is a good opportunity. At that point, I decided that it would be a good idea for me to even think about doing a master's in business, in finance, yes.
And it's interesting that you mentioned, because from the start, you did say that you're exposed to business. I mean, lots of family members of yours were exposed to business, were operating in that industry. And so it's just interesting how the dots are now connecting.
Exactly.
Yeah. And so finally on pupillage, what would your advice be to youngsters who have freshly been called to the bar, about to start pupillage, or they're still in law school, about to write their final papers and are thinking about pupillage? What should their approach be? What should their mindset be? How should they approach that season of their careers?
Okay, and it's interesting you should mention. I currently have pupils that are training under me, and this advice that I give them: take it a day at a time, take it slow, and have an open mind. You may not discover all that you wish to do with your career in one day. And let me be quick to add that what I've learned in my few years of practice is that the law is just a set of keys that you are given. It's a toolkit that allows you, it allows you access.
Yeah.
It allows you the opportunity to open various doors.
Yeah.
You have to decide. If you open one door and take a peep and you realize that, no, there's so much going on.
Close
this is
it
not what
up.
I want to do. You close it up.
Yeah.
If you open a door and you discover that these are things I want to do, you take the first steps.
Okay.
You walk into it. You shut the door behind you. You start to familiarize with the people in the business.
Yeah.
And those are various sectors. So the law itself is just a toolkit that allows you access to virtually everything that you can do. And I think that young lawyers have a rare opportunity to do everything and anything that they wish to do with that toolkit or the set of keys. Okay, so take the set of keys that you are being given at that point.
Yeah.
Your keys are being minted. The blacksmith is working on your keys. Take your time and take those keys. after you start to ask yourself questions, what do I truly want to do? That's a question that never leaves your mind. I still ask myself those questions. What do I truly want to zero in? And then you start to focus and build your proficiency, your training, seek further knowledge in those areas.
Okay. Let's look at your career trajectory. All right. You mentioned that you did national service at SHRAJ, the regional office. Take it from there. From there, where did you go? And would you say on hindsight, each of these milestones, let me describe it as such, played some part in who you are now?
Absolutely. I mean, I would absolutely say so. So when I worked in SHRAJ, we used to have some weekly meetings we called directors meetings, where cases that came to SHRAJ, we would sit, and I was in the investigations team.
Okay.
I think I had that opportunity because I was also a law student.
Yeah.
I had other colleagues who were with finance and administration, etc. But I had the real opportunity to sit in those meetings. And of course, the operations at the Greater Accra Regional Office of SHRAJ was rather small. And so in these meetings, I would sit as a law student. And I'll tell you some of the lessons I learned from having the opportunity. I mean, the Bible even says that, or there's even an adage that if you learn how to wash your hands, you can dine with kings.
Yeah.
When you have the opportunity, and a rare opportunity like that, to sit in a directors meeting with senior lawyers who are directors of the firm, legal officers who have several years in practice, investigators who are specialists in their fields, it is a rare opportunity to step up. You must ask yourself, am I taking the opportunity to step up?
Okay.
I took the opportunity to step up. I tried. And so I recall that they would give me some work. Can you do a PowerPoint in this? We want to do this legal education. And some of my colleagues, we're not proficient. And I said, it's something I can attempt. Go to somebody and ask them to teach me PowerPoint, and I go and then I do it and I present.
Excellent.
And so over a very short period, I started to become an integral part of the institution, even though I was just a national service person.
Right.
I recall that we did some cases where we had to go through the juvenile courts and take some children back to Australia to their grandparents. I was involved in that. We did some legal education, and I was probably the only national service person involved
on the team. Yeah.
And they would send me real reports and real letters on real cases, and I would do the reports. And I said, hey, so the law I have learned has some importance.
Doing the big stuff.
Doing the big stuff. So that grew some confidence in my knowledge and ability to appreciate that what I know is relevant.
Right.
I think young people, we don't hear enough of that. Start from where you are. What you know is relevant. Don't undermine. Don't undermine the value of what you have and what you know. Because even in the case of Moses, God asked him, what are you holding in your hand? So it's about what you're holding at the moment. Yes, you can acquire other things along the line, but what do you presently have? How do you work from there?
Yeah.
And that is the sort of approach you have to have. So from SHRAJ, I learned a lot of things, did all of these things, I built my confidence. So going into the law school and then to AB and David, I was pretty confident. And I suppose because I was also an SRS executive, I built quite
like political confidence.
Quite some confidence on leading self, leading your peers, and then leading others.
Okay.
Now, these are three classes of people that you have to look at. You have to learn to lead yourself first. Then lead your peers, because some of the business deals you get subsequently in your life depends on your peers. Your peers will say that this guy is proficient. Jeffrey is wonderful at this. Let's get Jeffrey. So your peers, and then extends to others. AB and David, I learned these lessons I mentioned about my personality, what drives me. I'm clear in my mind what drives me. And I have examples to support that to myself when I have those personal conversations with myself. Moving from then having made the decision and having that rare opportunity to have clarity on, or some level of clarity on where I wanted to go.
Yeah. I
came into the bank as a legal officer. Here too, it's been a wonderful journey. I think that I'm probably one of the luckiest people I've had the opportunity to rise. And I'll tell you some nuggets when I know we'll get into those specific conversations.
Definitely.
I'll give you some nuggets of what I've learned. Definitely. In my current job.
Definitely.
Yeah.
How long did you spend at AB and David?
I was at AB and David for almost 3 years.
Okay. And then you moved to the bank.
I moved to the bank. Even though it was a short time, I learned
so much within that period.
I learned so much. Everything I have as a foundation, I learned from there.
Now, would you say that the time at AB and David prepared you adequately for your current role as head of legal for Bank PLC, as well as chief legal officer for the Bank Group? Or are there still things that you have to learn? How did you approach those demands for you to deliver on things that you probably weren't sure of? How did you approach that?
I would say that my time at AB and David laid another brick.
Okay.
In the wall that I'm still building.
Right.
I had started to lay some of those bricks. And in fact, when I became a whole executive in tech, it was by chance. I was in second year law student, and I told myself that, in third year I'll run for political office. And then I was from lectures, one evening lecture, and I walked through the hall, and we're advertising hall executives. And I said, maybe. I said next year, let me apply.
What are you doing now?
When I applied, it turns out I was the only one who applied.
Wow.
So I was the sole contender on the post, and then I won. So imagine if I had not applied.
Yeah, missed opportunity.
And I think that the ripple effect of all of that culminating to where I am now would have been lost. So as young people, we need to take an opportunity, take a chance.
Yeah.
Believe in yourself and take the chance. Okay. But AB and David laid a further stone. It helped to build further bricks that are helping me as a foundation today. Now, in my current job, I had the opportunity to step up, and I had to take it. And young people, this is something that you have. Many of us have a rare opportunity to step up. When you do, you have to take it and step up. Okay, you're stepping up all the way up.
Yeah,
and that is something we need to take. Okay, and so my former boss had left. In fact, he was moving back into private practice as head of legal in the bank, and he had been several years here. He had attained a certain age, and he had a lot of friends in the industry, and he wanted to take his career in some other way. So there was a vacancy. And as things happened at the time, I was essentially deputizing for him as a legal officer. And so I was given the opportunity to act as head. That night I went home and I couldn't sleep. I said that this is an opportunity to step up. Identifying the opportunity is another thing.
Yeah.
You have to see the opportunity and seize it. So when I saw it, I decided this is my chance to step up. And I tried to. I recall that there were some issues happening in the industry at the time. We had to prepare some reports for the board on very issues that I had done before, but I wasn't too sure of. I had to stay sometimes till 5 a.m. working on reports myself with my calculator, fiscal calculator, typing in values of properties, trying to match it with the loan book, and generate graphs. And I went for a board meeting, and in fact, I was quite surprised at of course I saw some help from the finance team to help me to put those things together, because that's something they do on a daily basis.
Yeah.
But in looking to step up, I had to seek that kind of help. You have to know where to look for help and take it. You shouldn't be afraid to ask for help it to step up. So the report was sent to the board, and I recall that after a few board meetings, in fact, in one of them, I prepared the last report. And then anytime I went for the board meeting, I had to assume, prepare my mind for what was to come. This is a board of very astute finance people. And so I had to step up. How do I present my report? What are the punchlines? How do I even start the report? What sort of salutation? How do I support your posturing? Because all eyes are on you. You are acting. You are looking for a role that you don't have.
Yeah.
So I had to assume that role. And I had to act for 2 years before I got confirmation internally, and then went for Bank of Ghana approval and all of that. But all of those were opportunities to test whether I could step up. Okay, but the blocks had been built from some point.
Exactly.
So at that point, I had to lay another brick. I decided that this was my opportunity. I have to step up. I have to be more confident. I have to learn the terms. So I had to keep an ear out now for the financial terms, things in the industry. And banking is a very specialist area. So I had to learn the job also. What is it, the loan book? What does it mean? What's an API? If you're talking about your IT infrastructure, syncing with the bank infrastructure, things of the sort. You have to decide to drink deep. You have to learn. You have to decide that I want to obtain specialist knowledge in the field because this is where I'm zeroing into. And I tried to do that largely. So in the end, I had the opportunity, and and I'll tell you something. Even in that, it doesn't end there. When you even have what you want, there's also still a further opportunity to step up. In fact, Calbank, we had what we call a senior management team.
Okay.
And the head of legal was not a member, which is quite strict because in other banks they are. And I've gone through some executive coaching, and one of the things I've learned from my executive coach, shout outs to Eugene G. One of the things I learned from her was that a position and a role are not necessarily the same thing.
Okay.
You can be given a position that says head of legal, but what is the scope of the role? Depending on the job or the position holder, the role can be expanded.
Okay.
So subsequently, when the bank, I would say, I suppose, had seen that Eugene is competent, he can do this, we can use the services, he's concerned about the business, he understands. He's not the traditional general practitioner lawyer, which a lot of lawyers make the mistake of doing when they go into industry. But he's a part of us. He understands banking, he understands finance, he has a master's in finance. When they realized that, when the bank decided to create an executive committee, I was made a member. But I recall that on a trip with the managing director out of the country, we're traveling, and I told him that, MD, I'm looking for opportunities for growth. And I want to be better than I am. I want more opportunity. And so when we came back, a few days after, he called me on the phone and said that we've just formed this executive committee. You know that some other position was supposed to be the secretary. I want to be the secretary of the executive committee.
Nice one.
That was more opportunity. Okay, that was more opportunity to drink deep into the institution.
Yeah.
So the position of head of legal, as understood within the context of my current employment, may not have been a certain way, but because of the job holder, the role has been expanded.
The attitude that you
to provide more opportunity. Exactly. And yet again, there's another opportunity for me to step up all the way up.
Exactly.
And I'm looking to take it.
Exactly.
And so I'm taking specialist training and reading in various things.
These are heavy nuggets. These are heavy nuggets. I was going to ask a question on career growth, but it looks as though you've already answered those questions and so brilliantly and so practically as well. Let's move to specialization, all right? Should a lawyer specialize? Okay, the adage is jack of all trades, master of none.
Right.
But then very recently, I discovered the other part of that adage, which actually says is oftentimes better than being a master of one. So jack of all trades, master of none is oftentimes better than being a master of one. What is your take? Should a lawyer specialize, or should you be able to do any and everything? Now, let me just share this conversation I had with a colleague lawyer of mine. She said, look, anything criminal, she's not even going to touch it at all. Okay. And in my mind, and again, she said the reason why is she would relish telling someone who comes to her to handle a criminal case that she's not that kind of lawyer, all right, with some pride. And in my mind, I thought differently. I was like, look, I call myself a lawyer, and so whoever is coming to me for help of whatever kind is expecting a certain delivery from me. And so whether it's criminal law, whether it's civil or whatever it is, I should be able to deliver, right? These are two different mindsets. What is your take? Should a lawyer specialize?
Thanks, Jeff. I think that a lawyer, or anybody for that matter, must decide to do some form of specialization, and I'll explain.
Okay.
And I see the point. If anybody is like me, and I suspect that Jeffrey, you are, in my office, my colleagues say that I have FOMO, fear of missing out. I'm one of those people. I want to do everything. I know how to play the organ. I play the saxophone. I want to play the bass guitar. I want to play this. There are people like us who wish they could do everything.
Yeah. The
reality is you can do some amount of something, of everything, but you may not be able to do everything. But going back to the adage, jack of all trades, it's interesting because depending on how you define the trade, if you choose law as one trade, then you say you want to be a jack of all the trades. Law. So that is one trade, but it's multifaceted.
Exactly.
How do you become a master of the various facets of this one trade?
Exactly.
But I suspect that one cannot be entirely a master or a doyen of every single part of it. But I agree. And I think that it's important as a lawyer to have some, to be able to have the right tools and, more like a pot within which you can dip to make some intelligent guesses on various areas.
Okay.
But, you should be quick to be able to say that or admit to yourself that this is an area that I'm not as proficient as I would want to be. Yes, I can do some form of it. I recall that years ago I did some matter for somebody, brilliant work, criminal matter.
Okay.
Even when I wasn't when they got to appeal and the matter was heavily done, I referred to somebody who was competent, worked with him, and he came back to say that, counsel, the level of cross-examination you did was amazing.
Made the appeal easier.
Yeah, so my competence may be in doing the actual advocacy, but maybe the rules of practice in the area I may not be as proficient. I have to be able to admit that to myself because somebody's life and freedom,
it depends on
how well you do
exactly.
your effort. If you're doing commercial, somebody's money, property, civil trial, everything, somebody's rights or justice essentially hinges on how well you can do it.
Yeah.
So you should be able to admit to yourself. But I think it's important to gain some level of mastery in something.
Okay.
And you may not know it at the outset, but after you go closer to your end game, you should gain proficiency in something and have some generic knowledge in the other related fields because you don't want to also become the lawyer who's a lawyer minimo. Hey, lawyer, now we're going to say minimo. You quickly get banned.
That's my greatest fear.
Lawyer minimo, exactly. But it's important to do some level of specialization. But that will depend also on you, your temperament, your personality.
Okay. And lastly, on specialization, what should be the approach? Okay, I know some people will go out and then probably do some postgraduate studies in the field or what. But from your experience, what do you think is the most effective way of specializing in the field or being known for something in the practice?
Right. And this question is important because it goes back to why I left my old firm. I sat back and sort of looked back and decided to myself that a lot of the lawyers who are known in certain fields did specialist trading in those fields or at least worked in that industry. You may find a head of oil and gas practice in a law firm who worked in an oil and gas company. The head of a banking practice group who worked in a bank.
Yeah.
So they come with real industry experience. In fact, my former senior partner, David Fosudote, worked as a consultant for government in transport and projects.
Okay.
And his field is construction and projects. It's an area that he's super passionate about. Little wonder that he's so amazing at what he does because he's coming with some industry experience.
Yeah.
And I told myself, and he's one of my mentors, I must say. I told myself that one of the things I need to do then, or a key thing I need to do to be known for something, is to start to zero in on that industry. If at some point I settle in my mind again to go back into private practice, I should come with such knowledge that any industry person that I interact with or look to service would know that this is a man who knows exactly what he's talking about. I should know, for example, if I see a facility agreement or they're talking about certain trade terms or trade facilities, I should understand exactly what they mean.
Yeah.
If this rate is given, why is that the rate given? Okay. And so specialization is quite important, and that is something I have sought to do in zeroing in on what I do now.
Okay, let's go to postgraduate studies. All right, LLMs, MSCs, and whatnot for the lawyer. And I asked this question because I was having a conversation with a senior of mine, and he told me, Jeffrey, a master's is not necessary. You just need to build your links and then you'll be fine. And he appeared fine as well because he didn't have a master's degree. I mean, he had very great relationships with people, big clients. He was making money. All right. Do you think is necessary? And I backtrack a bit, and I recall you mentioned that at some point you decided to read a master's in business. Okay. Do you think it's necessary for a lawyer to go and pursue an LLM and if so, what should influence the choice of program you go for?
Right. I mean, I think that the question would depend largely on the individual. And, we need to understand that law practice is changing.
Yeah.
The type of clients that we are serving are changing. They're more demanding. They're more industry understanding. When the country had fewer lawyers than we have today, lawyers were lawyers. Now everybody has a lawyer in their home.
Exactly.
And the clients you are serving, if you work in certain specialist industries, they want to see that you have a qualification in that industry. If you are going to work in finance, they want to see that you are proficient enough, you've taken further studies. But if you are going to resign to private practice, as we call it, you operate a law firm, and the focus of your practice is dispute resolution, etc., you may not think that it's necessary to have that sort of qualification. But I think that even then, you may want to do some level of training. You cannot know everything just by reading articles and reading your law books and law reports. Yeah. There are things you can only learn if you take industry-specific training. Yeah. And so, for example, I can't learn, finance as I know it, investment, portfolio analysis, and trading if I just listen to Bloomberg. Yeah. I may gain some level of knowledge, but I thought for my career that it was important to get proper training. And that is why I went back to school to do a master's in development finance from the University of Ghana Business School. Okay, of course, that is also building on from my, my Ghana Stock Exchange, program. Yeah. I think the question really is, should one do a master's in some other field other than an LLM, which is a law-related field? Yeah, yeah. I think for most people, that is more the question on what they should do. I think from my interaction with, friends who are in academia, strictly, they say that an LLM pushes them up the scale for that career trajectory. Okay.
That's academia.
For academia. And I know that even in industry, if, for example, you're going to work with an international organization like the UN, and you have a qualification in international business law or something of the sort, that
gives you an upper hand.
Gives you an upper hand, becomes a tool. And it's not going to school for going to school's sake. That is not what I advocate. I advocate that you go to school because it's going to serve a purpose. Okay. This is what you identify as, and I can only use myself as an example. I think that everybody will have their own experience regarding whether to go back to school or not, because social capital is also important. And we in some other conversation, we'll talk about that. That, apart from all of these things, your social capital is what ultimately will deliver certain deals. That is true. But when the deal has been delivered, are you competent to deal with it if you don't have the industry knowledge? Yeah. Don't forget, in law training, you're only given a toolkit. When you leave and you're given a certificate, you're given a toolkit. How do you understand the problem that you're going to solve enough to use the toolkit to solve the problem? Yeah. Specialist training sometimes helps. So in my experience, specialist training will help. That doesn't mean you should do a master's. You can do a professional program. There are professional programs, accreditation in taxation, data protection. These are things that you can also explore. Arbitration, if these are things that you want to do, you can explore those without doing a master's. But a master's will help depending on what you've identified as your career trajectory. So the
purpose is going to serve, like you said. That's interesting. Work-life balance. Work-life balance. Aside your being the chief legal officer of Cow Bank Group and then head of legal of Cow Bank PLC, you're a human being. Right. And I believe you have lots of interests. We already discussed your career, potential career as a saxophonist, professional saxophonist.
We'll talk about that after.
Now, what has it been like for you? What are the things you enjoy doing? How do you strike that balance, work, having fun, family?
Right.
Tell me.
So I have a go-to place.
Okay.
And my go-to place is music.
Right.
As you mentioned, music is a great distraction for me. In fact, I might, if you want to see the true Eugene Gilbert Amponsah, you have to see me doing music. Sitting behind the organ and playing a certain hymn and just rocking from place to place.
Yeah.
I think that is the truest, most authentic me.
Right.
Okay. And everybody has to determine for themselves what is your most authentic you. And then, you hone in on that. My most authentic place and my go-to place is music. Okay?
Right.
When I'm playing my saxophone, it's
on cloud 9.
I'm on cloud 10 maybe. So it's important for work-life balance to have what I call a distraction.
Right.
I won't say a disturbance, which has become quite topical, but you need to have something that distracts you from your normal
routine.
You may find a hobby. Some people like art. I know lawyers who like art and they are quite proficient.
Yeah.
On a Saturday, as we were speaking, they are doing some paintings.
Paint strokes somewhere.
Or they go to the gym, they like to work out. And that's a distraction for them. The importance of that is that it gives you, you have something to go to other than your usual stressful, reading cases and thinking about the finance and all of those things.
Yeah.
You have a go-to place where you can distress. And a lot of lawyers are dying, many more younger than you'd think have died in the last 3 years. And it's stress. Cardiac arrest is stress. Because you're stressed and you're sitting in the office late till 5 a.m. like I used to do, you are snacking on, some biscuits and a bottle of Coke. You get home, you're so tired, you go to bed. You're building up, the wrong stuff in your system.
Yeah.
You need something that takes you away from all of that. Either it's music, either it's art, either it's traveling, there's something
has to
that
be
you
something.
need to do that takes you away. Even if you're doing a job that is honing on or it's focused on your hobby, you may still want to find something else that distracts you. Reading may be a fine thing to do.
Yeah.
So I think that is what I do, and I will highly recommend it to all of us.
Right. That being said, do you see yourself ever taking up a career in music at some point in time? Probably playing professionally, commercially.
I put up a post on my WhatsApp status on Val's Day. Somebody said that saxophonists are probably cleaning. That's the thing.
Cleaning their instruments.
And
ready to serenade.
And I think that the more time I'm spending in corporate is making me realize that in as much as I want to grow there, I want to grow in the other things that matter to me. Okay, so yes, I don't see myself sitting in the studio every week.
Yeah,
but I'm looking to step up even in my instrument play. What I do now is that I have an instrument in my car. Anytime I park somewhere, I just park on a quiet Friday and then I go through some riffs and runs.
Nice.
Some scales and stuff like that. The saxophonist, just to keep abreast of what's happening in the music industry.
Yeah.
What I'm looking to do at some point is maybe to play a little more.
Okay.
But I went for a program and then I've met a friend who now owns a band. So he is, I think, a banker, but he now has a band that every weekend he's occupied.
Wow.
Saturdays he's at a wedding engagement in the morning, doing a wedding dinner on Saturday, taking his 10, say K, Sundays he's doing the same. And then he invited me to play. And so now it's become more like a regular. He would invite me, I don't invite me and say that, Charlie, there's a gig here, can we go and play? I'm looking to, like I said, open the door, take a step in, take a few steps, and then shut the door behind me if I'm comfortable with the environment. And see how far that will take me. But I know that it's going to be an interesting journey for me. Yeah.
Nice. Finally, Eugene, what's the future looking like? I had a friend who, we're in law school, and she once used to tell me, Jeffrey, I want to be the head of treasury for a certain bank, right? And now she's exceeded that level.
Wonderful.
And so recently I was talking to her and I was like, how about that dream? And she's like, it's history now because she's far above that. What's the future looking like for you now? You're head of legal Bank PLC. Big post. Bernard Avle will say you're a big man, right?
Small boy.
What's it looking like for you?
Okay. Without giving any specifics, I think the future is looking pretty great. And because I've made up my mind that that's what the future is going to look like. I've learned a lesson from a friend of mine recently, another lawyer, Jude. He says that you have to be around people because if you're around positive people, you draw positive energy. Yeah. And his life is testament to the kind of things he's been able to do under 40. So for me, the future is pretty great. I'm looking to, again, develop myself a lot more. I think that there's so much that a human is capable of. There's so much I'm capable of. And I'm looking to explore all of that. Without, of course, in terms of my career, going completely off tangent in what I'm doing. And I've recently discovered that there's some area in my career that in my field that I really want to hone on, or I really want to focus on in the meantime. And I've started to take some steps. I won't disclose that here.
Highly classified.
See me in chambers. but that is something I'm looking to do. And in taking those steps, the future can only be better. And I can say this confidently, looking at how my life has turned out. A lot of providence, a lot of God's direction on some of the things. I wanted to read business. I read law. It's coming in
Found your way back, exactly.
I want to do. So I think that it's going to get better. The future is going to be bright. And it's a kind of mindset that we all have to have. When you step up and you're looking to go all the way up, you have to know that you will make it all the way up and believe it.
Thank you very much, Eugene Amponsah, Head of Legal for Bank PLC, Chief Legal Officer for Bank Group. It's been an amazing conversation. Heavy stuff you've dropped. I'm sure our listeners are more than grateful. I'm also very grateful for the time spent with us. People, you heard the man Eugene. Thank you very much for your attention, and look out for the next episode. Thank you. Welcome to All the Way Up podcast by Jeffrey Mensah. This is the Bar and Beyond series, a platform where we host insightful conversations that push growth, drive ambition, and shape perspectives of young lawyers.